All right, what is going on, Chiefs Kingdom? Welcome back to another KC Sports Report live stream. I'm your host, Michael Darcy, and tonight I have the pleasure of being joined by Josh Fan, and we're going to break down the Chiefs' win over the Green Bay Packers. So there's a lot that stuck out to me in this game, honestly. I want to talk about the positives because I feel like over the past couple weeks it's been all negative, and I mean, trust me, I've been one of the biggest negative guys on YouTube because they haven't been playing good. But last night, I saw improvement. I saw some improvement, and that's what I'm going to try to pinpoint, and that's what I want to talk about. I think that we really saw a defensive improvement. I think that defense and special teams quite literally carried this win. Like, you do not win this game if your special teams and defense do not perform in the way that they did. But I was really happy to see what we got from the defensive line in terms of forcing pressure. We're going to get into Frank Clark a little bit later because, we've ragged on him all year, but dude's starting to show up, and we really need that at this point. But I thought that Tommy Townsend had a phenomenal game. But besides the defense and the special teams, offense wasn't very good. And Mecole Hardman has had a lot of problems catching the football and just fumbling the football in general. And I'm sure that we'll get into that too. But
we're gonna get into Hardman.
Yeah, talking about all the offensive woes, I think a lot of it is just the inability to change up what the game plan's been for so long. It's just like, all right, you have Andy Reid, you have Patrick Mahomes, you have all these offensive weapons. We're just going to target the middle, or we're going to just target deep downfield. They're not targeting the middle. That's what's the biggest problem in my mind. And until they change that, we're going to continue to see this offense that is really struggling right now.
Well, like you said, we'll start off with the positives because, I have a lot of thoughts on the offense. But defensively, I mean, that was a fantastic game. And I know it was against Jordan Love, but I said in my post game that actually, if I'm a Packers fan, I'm kind of encouraged by what I saw from Jordan Love. I mean, he didn't set the world on fire or anything like that, but what you didn't want was him going out there and pissing down his leg in his first start and looking like Nathan Peterman and throwing a bunch of picks. He didn't do that. He had some trouble sustaining drives, but then later in the game, he started to get into a rhythm a little bit. And some of that was thanks to Dan Sorensen being on the field. But you get my point. I mean, Jordan Love was not that bad. And I even think that if Aaron Rodgers were to play in this game, that this Chiefs defense still does a good enough job to allow the Chiefs to win the game. And we always said that if the Chiefs defense was ever going to turn it around, it was because the pass rush was going to step up. We went into the year acknowledging that, secondary, not usually something Brett Veach invests high in, corner in particular. You have a solid group. It could be better, but it's fine as long as you have a pass rush. They didn't have a pass rush. Linebackers, we always thought they had just enough there to get the job done. And the defensive line was supposed to be the strength of this team. They were supposedly super deep heading into the year, and they just weren't getting the job done early on, which made the entire defense fall apart, really. So if the Chiefs defense was ever going to step it up, it would be because of improvements from the defensive line. And we saw improvements from the defensive line. Firstly, Melvin Ingram, great addition. He had the highest pressure rate out of all the defensive ends yesterday, or defensive linemen, actually, overall, I believe. Anyway,
I think Chris Jones had 7 pressures and Ingram had 4.
Yeah, he had a higher pressure rate considering the amount of snaps that he had played. So, that's my point there. Limited snaps is what I was going to say. Yeah. And then Frank Clark, obviously, you touched on it at the beginning of the video. We've been really hard on him. I've been really hard on him in particular. I've been at the forefront of Frank Clark's got to go. And
Josh has been banging the drum for a long time, guys. Like a long time.
And sorry to play Debbie Downer, but Frank Clark still has to go because even though he has been playing better recently, he still isn't worth the $26 million cap hit. They're still going to have to get rid of him. I'm just going to say that now. But before, when we were heading into the season, a lot of people said that anything positive you get from Frank Clark is a bonus because no one expected him to do anything. And now he's actually doing something. He's being productive, and that's a step up from the Frank Clark we had before.
That's the thing. Like, the expectations for Frank Clark were so incredibly low that the fact that he's getting consistent pressure at this point in the last 3 games is like, all right, okay.
And it's funny too. Sorry to cut you off, but even with the performance that he's having, he's still playing like a league average defensive end. And since Frank Clark has been invisible for so long, people are celebrating him as, playing like we are paying him to play. And he's not quite up to that standard. He's playing fine. He's playing okay. Like I said, he's been more productive than he usually is in these past few games, but he still hasn't been anything spectacular. But as I said before, the expectations were so low for Frank Clark, and you're just happy that you're getting something out of him.
Yeah, and I mean, I am very happy that Frank Clark is performing the way that he is right now, but he's not worth the cap hit next year. You still got to get rid of him. I agree with you 100%, but like, at least he's doing something opposed to doing nothing. And I noticed, his get off time yesterday was really, really good. There was a couple times that I thought he jumped off sides, but it was just,
I know the play you're talking about too. He just
was
perfectly
timing
timed the
it so
snap.
well. Yeah. So if we see the defensive line moving forward perform well, Frank Clark's going to have to be a part of that. And I think that, he's doing something that isn't taking away from his play. He's doing something instead of nothing, which is, I guess, by default a bonus. But I think that, talking about this game more, I really don't have any complaints from a defensive standpoint, except for leaving Dan Sorensen. There was one time where Dan Sorensen got lost in coverage, and the Packers immediately pinpointed him. And I think that's a problem. But you also saw that when Dan Sorensen's playing downhill and he's like able to get after the quarterback and blitz, he's great. He's fine. It's just you can't put him in coverage. Like that's the problem. I almost thought, hey, why don't you like turn him into like a linebacker? Because maybe he could. I mean, his tackling ability is not terrible, but his coverage ability is just horrible at this point. So like they're gonna have to figure out what to do. But I think that the answer is just by benching him.
And that's on Steve Spagnuolo. That's all on Steve Spagnuolo. At this point, I know it's easy to punch on Sorensen. I saw people saying this on Twitter too. We all know that Sorensen is incapable. So this is 100% on Steve Spagnuolo for not realizing that and putting him in a position to fail when everyone knows he's incapable. And you almost wonder if at some point Sorensen himself has to go up to Steve Spagnuolo and go, Steve, stop putting me in coverage. I can't do it. Like just admit it, It's crazy. And
he knows too.
Yeah,
he knows.
I want to see. And you've been banging the drum for this guy. We got to see some Armani Watts. Dan Sorensen cannot continue to be this bad. At least Watts is the better athlete. I mean, if Watts is so bad that he cannot be on these coverage, these money downs instead of Dan Sorensen, then he should just not be on the roster. Why is he on the roster if you can't play him over Dan Sorensen after how bad he's been? Same thing could be said for Ben Niemann too.
And Dorian O'Daniel.
Yep, I think he should be playing. And here's the thing, Michael. The Chiefs were about to pitch a shutout yesterday, if not for Dan Sorensen. And then going back to the Giants game, every single touchdown scored by the Giants in that game can be attributed to Dan Sorensen and Ben Niemann. If they were not on the field, the Chiefs have 2 straight shutouts, literally.
And you could also say that, like, they played Anthony Hitchens coming back from injury at the Mike position, and they moved Nick Bolton to the edge. You can't do that. You got to put Nick Bolton in the middle. Like, that's just where he's going to excel. And I think that, you should put Anthony Hitchens in the position of a Ben Niemann. Like, he's not as bad in coverage, but he's also not great. But, going back to Armani Watts and the Dan Sorensen thing, like, Armani Watts obviously has not earned the trust of the organization, but I'll take the lumps and the hiccups of Armani Watts not knowing where to be because he's a better athlete. At this point in the game, Armani Watts gives the Chiefs the best chance to be a good defense.
Yeah, at least he gives you a chance because those other guys, they're not.
Yeah. I will say, because Master at Work is in here and he's a Patriots fan, I think that the Bills are going to take care of you. But even then, the Bills, they got handled yesterday by the Jags. So, like, and I kind of want to talk about this a little bit, not trying to stray too far away from the game, but the AFC's wide open. Like, as much as we've been negative about this Chiefs team, if you put it together, and that's why I think I'm so optimistic, because the defense is shown in the improvement. And I think I had a lot more trust in the offense, obviously, coming into this season than the defense. Now that the defense and special teams are performing the way that they are, I have some trust that the offense is going to figure it out eventually. I'm not saying they're going to be like 2018-19 elite, but like they got to get better at some point, right? Like, wouldn't it be better? It'd be better to trust in the offense than trust in the defense. At least that's what I think.
Here's the thing with the offense, and it's not like the defense where before. They were bad to begin the year. They were bad all year up until this point, and they had to prove to us that they could actually be competent. We've seen the offense be good this year. It's not like they're incapable. We know they're capable because we've seen them do it. They put up 30, was it 29? I don't know, 30 against Cleveland in week 1. They put up 30 on Baltimore. They put up 30 on the Chargers. Like, we've seen this offense play well this year. So I don't know what's going on, but they do have the ability to play better. I don't know what's going on with them right now. Well, actually, I do know what's going on with them a little bit, but we'll talk about that later.
And it's just like, bet on Patrick Mahomes. And I think we saw it in that last drive. Patrick Mahomes had a very bad game yesterday. He just wasn't really hitting his receivers. Part of that could be because of Mecole Hardman. We'll talk about that a little bit later. But like, when the game was on the line and you needed a first down, Patrick Mahomes to Tyreek Hill in the most Patrick Mahomes-esque play that we've ever seen. Like, that's just Patrick Mahomes. I'm not here to say that that's going to be the play that gets them out of it, because I don't believe that. I think that they're going to have a couple drives that show that sustained success before we say, okay, is that what's going to be what puts them over the edge? But, I think that looking at it, we had so much mistrust in the defense that the fact that they are performing well, I have trust that the offense is eventually going to fix it out. What I was trying to make with that point about the AFC being wide open, you could go back to the Super Bowl. I don't know if I'm being a little bit too over optimistic right now. If you figure it out, if your defense and your offense hits a stride, because we're at week 9, week 10 right now. If they hit that stride, the AFC, there's no one in the AFC that you cannot beat at this point. Like, I genuinely believe if the Chiefs give their best foot forward, they can beat anybody.
Well, I'll counter that with this. You're correct. The AFC is wide open and the Chiefs could beat anyone, but I think that's more so that everyone else could lose to the Chiefs more so than the Chiefs can beat anyone else, because while they have some wins that they just got, and you have more wins supposedly coming up on the schedule. Like, I think they can beat the Cowboys after what we saw against the Broncos. I don't know what the hell happened to the Cowboys and the Raiders with everything that's gone on, and they just lost to the Giants. I mean, you can beat the Raiders like that. Those are 2 more wins right there. You could be looking at 7-4 heading into the bye. Or is the bye week after the Raiders game?
I think the bye week is after the Raiders game, because we play the Raiders are this next week.
Yeah. So then you had the bye week, and then maybe you can be 7-4 after beating the Cowboys. But here's the thing. I don't want to go there yet, because if Aaron Rodgers played in this last game, there's a good chance the Chiefs lose. And last week against the Giants, I mean, they beat the Giants by 3 points, and they were a very beat up Giants team. No Saquon Barkley, no Kenny Galladay, and Daniel Jones had a chance to beat you on the last drive of the game if your defense doesn't step up. So we could easily be having a different conversation right now. Mm-hmm. And you say, well, if the Chiefs, play their best football, well, we just haven't seen them play their best football yet this year. So until they show that they can, I'm just going to be under the assumption that this is what they are, and I'm not ready to say they can make their way to the Super Bowl yet. I think they'll make the playoffs now, and I think the division is still in play, and I felt differently probably a few weeks ago, but I do want to hold off a little bit.
Well, yeah, I'm not out here saying that they're going to run it all the way to the Super Bowl, but what I'm trying to say is, like, no one in the AFC has that, like, 2020 Chiefs look. Like, you knew when you faced the Chiefs that, all right, this is the team to beat. Like, I guess it's Tennessee at this point, but even then, like, they don't have Derrick Henry anymore, and that's going to catch up to them, I feel like. So the AFC, if you can figure it out, you have a shot. Like, you legitimately have a shot if you can figure it out, but it's going to be a matter of if they can. But I will say, encouraging note, they didn't turn the ball over yesterday. They won the turnover battle 2-0. L'Jarius Sneed had a great pick. I believe we recovered a fumble on special teams, which should have been a touchdown, by the way, but it wasn't. But I think that the Chiefs showed improvement in the defensive area, turning the ball over, and special teams. Obviously, we need to see the offense take the shift, but I will say that I was not expecting that coming into this game.
Yeah, no, I'm glad you brought up the recovered punt for a second, because first of all, that rule is stupid. You should be able to advance it even if they don't get possession. If they touch it, you should be able to advance the ball and get a touchdown. Yeah. And also, you want to put into perspective how bad the Chiefs offense was yesterday. They were absolutely gifted that ball at the 10-yard line and still couldn't punch it in. I mean, you gotta get a touchdown there.
But. And I don't know why. Like it's just that almost seems like more of a mental thing. I don't get it because like you should be able to punch that in. Like they've shown that they can punch it in, but for whatever reason they're not doing that. So
I'll tell you the biggest reason or the biggest thing holding them back right now, and it's the play calling. And reading the enemy, whoever it is calling plays, I don't know. I've heard a ton of stuff. Whoever it is calling plays, someone else needs to take over because this is hideous what we've been seeing the past few weeks.
Yeah. There's a lot of uncertainty because like you know they want to give it to Mahomes, but they also like want to run it on second and long. It's just like they don't really know what they're doing, and like when Mahomes does drop back to pass, he's not really aiming for the easy part of the field, which is the middle that's unguarded. In the cover 2 look, or the deep safeties are back. The middle of the field is open, but you know they're not really attacking the middle of the field, and the receivers like they ran a bunch of out routes yesterday, and that brings me to Mecole Hardman. Mecole Hardman is unplayable, and it really is unfortunate to say that, but he should not be getting snaps over Josh Gordon, and I don't think that.
No.
Go ahead. I can't even.
You know, I was gonna say you need to give Josh Gordon all the snaps because this is ridiculous. And I know Mecole Hardman is on pace for 700 yards this year, and people are going to point out that his production, his receptions and targets and yards are up this year. You know why? 2 words: manufactured targets. This guy cannot do anything unless it is a design play where he gets the ball behind the line of scrimmage. He can't run routes. You saw yesterday he quit on the deep ball by Patrick Mahomes yesterday. One where he complained about pass interference. No, if he had ran his whole route through, then he would have gotten that ball. And then he drops the ball on 3rd and 2 in the 3rd quarter. It would have been a first down. It's right in his hands. He fumbles another ball on special teams. And God damn it, Dave Toub. I know a lot of people have praised Dave Toub for yesterday. Stop. Dave Toub he's continued to put trust in guys that do not have it. Hardman should have been kicked off return team a long time ago. I'm done with Hardman just as you are. I don't understand it. And you brought up the comment there from Lucas, Josh Gordon. Yeah. I mean, I feel bad for the guy. And this is why I said I do not fault Le'Veon Bell for what he said about Andy Reid, because how can you blame Josh Gordon? It's not like he's not getting up. And look, he had a pass yesterday that was thrown to him. He should have caught it, but you can't just completely shut down on him after one attempt. You got to make more of an effort to get him involved. What is he going to do when you only target him 4 times in 5 weeks?
To me, that's because they're like, you know, we targeted Josh Gordon. One throw is not a target. Like that, you're not actively trying to get him the ball. Like that's not trying. That's like, well, I guess he's open. And I wonder if that comes down to like a lack of trust, but you know, it doesn't look like they trust Mecole Hardman any better. Like Mahomes is still frustrated, telling him where to be. Like it doesn't make sense.
They trust Hardman. But I don't know why they do. They try so hard to force feed him the ball and get him involved, and he just doesn't return the favor. And I'm done with him, man. He's not going to be here beyond his rookie contract. He's just not.
Yeah, and you know, like you're talking about Dave Toub. Dave Toub wasn't punching 5 balls within the 20. That was Tommy Townsend.
That was all Tommy Townsend.
Yeah, like that is solely because of Tommy Townsend and his ability to punt the football. Like that's what it is. And Dave Toub, his special teams unit was good in 2019. Last year was it was horrible last year. And I don't know where they rank this year, but you know, they need to figure out a return guy, whether it's Mike Hughes or someone else.
Mike Hughes isn't playing quarterback anymore. Might as well put him on returns so you don't have to worry about him getting hurt so he can't play cornerback. He's not giving you snaps at corner anymore. He was their best returner in preseason, so I would love for them to utilize him there.
Every time that Mecole Hardman is lined up in the punt return, I expect him to drop the ball. Like I just expect him to miff it. I don't know why. It's just that's what I've become accustomed to because he just can't catch the football.
I cringe every time he gets the ball, and it's weird because I feel like Mecole, he's someone that's active on social media. I think he sees a lot of the tweets about him. He sees and hears a lot of the criticism about him. And he's so unraveled in trying to be the player that Chiefs fans want him to be that he's actually gotten worse. Like he's regressed since his rookie year. He's worse.
I'm addressing that comment really quickly. I did not say that at all. But I wanted to talk about really quickly how
Oh, I
like
see it.
everyone says that Aaron Rodgers would have killed us. And I said the week previously that I had nightmares of Aaron Rodgers coming to Kansas City to play this team. And so when Jordan Love took over, I was like, all right, you have a chance. But at the same time, I thought that the Packers could win that game because their team is good. Like, you have a very good, capable running back in Aaron Jones. You have a very good defense that's been overperforming expectations. You have the best, well, you could argue the best receiver in football behind Tyreek Hill and Devontae Adams. Like, they have pieces. Like, that is a good football team with or without Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers is obviously the engine that gets the car going, but they have a good squad. I mean, Aaron is obviously why they are successful, but like, don't make it seem like we beat the Giants practice squad yesterday. Like, they're still a good football team.
Yeah, and look, this is a totally separate thing, kind of unrelated. But when the MVP conversation was down to Aaron Rodgers and Patrick Mahomes last year, there was a lot of, look what Rodgers is doing with absolutely no one. Guys, let's not act like he doesn't have Devontae Adams, a top 2 receiver, Robert Tonyan, a damn good tight end, Aaron Jones, and one of the best offensive lines in the entire league. And the Packers actually had a pretty good defense last year. Come on. The Packers, even without Aaron Rodgers, are a top 10 roster talent-wise. I don't think you can necessarily say the same for the Kansas City Chiefs.
And, everyone was giving shit to Jordan Love about not looking good. I thought that he made some NFL caliber throws. Like, there were times where he didn't.
Yeah, like the one that got picked off by Snead, that was not a bad throw. That was just an amazing play by Snead.
Yeah. And that's a perfect segue. I think L'Jarius Sneed played his best game in the pros yesterday.
Yeah, I said that last night.
Travarius Ward against Devontae Adams was surprisingly even. Like,
Travarius Ward actually hasn't been that bad lately. Although he's had a couple of penalties, but every single penalty I've seen from him in the past couple of weeks, I don't think was his fault. He had a really weak holding call against the Giants, and then what was the one that he had this game? I think it was another holding. But it was like really weak. I didn't like that call at all. That wasn't really Ward's fault. He's been playing well.
Yeah, that wasn't a holding call, but I don't know. I thought that the defense was phenomenal yesterday. And like, getting back to the offense, like, I get really frustrated when I think that they just don't do the easy thing, the thing that's right in front of them. And I thought that yesterday, a lot of the time, that Travis Kelce was open a lot, and they just push the ball downfield. They tried to keep pushing. And like, even when they would run the ball, they would run the ball in the wrong situation. Like, I'm all for getting a running game going and doing that early and to establish the run. But running on 2nd and long every single drive is so predictable, and it didn't work.
Waste of a down. I was waiting for us to talk about the running game because this is where I'm getting upset with Reed or maybe Eric Bieniemy, depending on who's calling the plays. Again, I don't know who it is, but this needs to stop. When you run the ball on 2nd and long, especially when you have an undynamic back such as Darrell Williams, and look, I like Darrell Williams, but he's a downhill straight line runner. He's not going to make a ton of people miss. He's going to find the hole. He's going to run through it. And when you're running up the gut on 2nd and long, it's so uncreative. It's a waste of a down. The Chiefs do it so much that defenses know it's coming. They're able to stop it. It's not, people act like the Chiefs are incapable of running the ball. They're not incapable of running the ball. They have enough talent in the running back room, and they have one of the best run blocking offensive lines in the entire league. But you shouldn't be running in that situation. The situation you should be running, how about instead of throwing the ball to Mecole Hardman on 3rd and 2, how about you hand the ball off to Derek Gore behind Trey Smith and Creed Humphrey? That's going to be more successful 9 times out of 10 than throwing the ball to Mecole Hardman on a money down. That made no sense to me. You know what?
Give it to your fullback. Your fullback has not been utilized, but he's very good in short yard situations.
Well, and another thing, I think Andy Reid is mismanaging the running back room. Jerick McKinnon looked really good in the passing game yesterday. I still don't understand why they don't give him some handoffs at running back, especially when they like to run these zone running concepts a lot. Jerick McKinnon is the best for that. Use him like you use Damian Williams. And then they have Derek Gore, who had the game of his life against New York Giants, and he got 3 carries against Green Bay. Why are you not rewarding a player for having his best career game? He was your best running back last week, and he gets 3 carries. I don't understand that at all. And he averaged 4.3 yards per carry on those 3 carries, and they went away from him. I don't understand it.
it's like the Andy Reid MO. It's just like, all right, this player performed exceptionally well. We're gonna put him on the bench. Like it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense at all. But like, I think going forward, like you saw the defense shift, and I wondered how this defense is going to perform like against a very good offense. Which, you know, with Aaron Rodgers, the Packers are a very good offense, but like we don't really know what they're like without him. But this next week is going to be a real test because, like, I think, you know, you had the luxury of not facing Aaron Rodgers, so that game was basically going from an L to possibly a W. This week, you know, the Raiders franchise is in turmoil, but like they've kind of shown the ability to like even win when they're not really expected to. When their head coach lost or when their head coach basically got fired, they still went on a stretch where they won some games and they looked all right. So this next week is going to be really important to see how both the offense and the defense adjusts.
Yeah, I want to say one more thing about the running game too, real quick, before I put in a comment on that. I talked about it today in my video I made about how the Chiefs need to run the ball more. When the offense looks as dead as it did yesterday, throwing the ball, and these teams are giving you these too high safety looks, and they're trying to actively take away Mahomes in the big play, that's when you need to be able to run the ball. And the Packers were daring them to run the ball, and there was a stat out there that the Packers had the worst EPA run defense when they show a light box. That means when the Packers are giving a defensive look, light box, they're the worst in the league at defending the run, and the Chiefs could not take advantage. And I wanted to pull my hair out. You need to be able to run the freaking ball. And as I said, go back and watch the Super Bowl against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Clyde Edwards-Helaire was one of the only effective offensive players in that game because the Bucs were trying so hard to take away Travis Kelce, Tyreek Hill, and Patrick Mahomes, and they did a good job of doing that. And Clyde was able to get some big runs because their base defense was allowing them to run the ball. And you also need to be able to do that because you don't want Mahomes to take a beating, because every time Mahomes was dropping back in that game, he was getting hit by a Bucs defender. And you need to be able to run the ball effectively so you can also give Mahomes a freaking break every once in a while.
Lucas is loving the Clyde love in the comments, by the way. Which I do think Clyde athletically is going to be big coming back because, like, you know, he hasn't been the player that we drafted him to be. I'd much rather have Jonathan Taylor right now.
Yeah.
But Clyde's going to be able to do something. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, he's better than Darrell Williams. I don't think the gap between him and Darrell Williams is that large. But
give me the rock. Give me the rock. Short yard situations, I'm going to get it.
Yeah, Michael the Barrel.
Exactly. Just sign me up. I'm ready.
But stemming from your comments about the Raiders, yeah, I mean, they've still been able to put together some decent football despite all the crap they've been through this year. I actually really feel bad for Derek Carr because he's actually played extremely well, but the organization around him is just completely crumbling. And they actually signed Deshaun Jackson, which I think is worth mentioning because they lost Henry Ruggs to that whole debacle. I think Deshaun Jackson, even though he's not the player he once was, can replicate Henry Ruggs a little bit in their offense. So that's almost kind of a wash to me, even though I think Henry Ruggs was really starting to come on. But you're going to have to watch for him. So don't put Dan Sorensen on Deshaun Jackson, or he might look like prime Deshaun Jackson again. But yeah, they should still be able to beat the Raiders.
Why don't we get into this question real quick? Why don't we go no huddle, quick snap to catch some football teams off guard? Because that's a good question. Why don't they do that?
I mean,
it's not what Andy does.
Yeah, Andy Reid is not going to do that, especially when this offense has already. See, if you're going to run quick no huddle, your execution has to be perfect. The Chiefs' execution has not been great this year. They're the worst team in the league with turnovers, right? And you want them to run quick no huddle? That's asking to turn the ball over.
Yeah. I mean, and I also just think that, like, to be quite honest with you, I don't think he knows what's going on. Because, you know, I was listening to Ryan over at RGR. He was talking about maybe Mahomes does have some sort of lower body injury that's kind of making him a little bit off. But, you know, it could also be just like overthinking, lack of confidence. And I think that, like, I would be not confident either when I'm throwing absolute dimes in front of my receivers and it's just hitting off Mecole Hardman's hand. Like, and even Tyreek Hill's had his fair share of drops. Travis Kelce's done the exact same thing. So, like, you can kind of share the blame. And I think that a lot of it goes on Mahomes because I think that, you know, his first read is obviously to Tyreek Hill, and as it should be, or it's either to Tyreek Hill or Travis Kelce. But after those 2 reads, he's not looking anywhere else. You know what I mean? Like, there are times where Josh Gordon is standing wide open and he just doesn't see him. Like that's on Mahomes.
Yeah, they need to make more of an effort to build trust with guys. But you remember how in the Super Bowl, for some reason, they tried to get Mecole Hardman involved really early to catch the Bucs off guard. And Mecole Hardman, obviously, he dropped 2 of his 3 first targets. So that was a bad idea. But the way they did that to try to get, Mecole Hardman going, they need to do that with Josh Gordon. Like, how about this next game against the Raiders? Your first 3 passes are just quick, Josh Gordon, and just try to get him going and see what you can get.
You could force feed any receiver on this Chiefs team, and I would rather force feed Josh Gordon, who's a better talent than Mecole Hardman just is. Like, I don't know why at this point you're not going to me, or you're not going to Josh Gordon, because like everyone's like, oh, the Chiefs should sign Odell, and I was like, you think that Odell's just going to come in day one and just take over this offense? Like, it doesn't make sense.
Well, speaking of him, because I haven't been able to talk with you since that.
Yeah, why don't we talk about that
thing? What are your thoughts about potentially adding Odell?
Now, obviously, if it happened, I wouldn't be like, ugh. But like, I just don't think it really matters as much as a lot of people think it is. I don't think he's personally as good as he used to be. And I think that there's a big reason for why Baker's better without him. Like, I think he's very like personally oriented, in which he needs the ball at all times. And I just don't think that he would really fit. Like, I mean, maybe he would. Maybe he's just like, hey, I'm just trying to come in here and win, and all right. But I also just don't think that adding Odell fixes the overall problem. If you wanted, you could trade for a better running back, kind of as a 1-2 punch with Clyde, but you'd have to get rid of a McKinnon, or you'd have to get rid of a Darrell, and they're not going to do that. So it's just like, I personally wouldn't go after a Odell kind of guy, but I would put more emphasis on just getting better with what you got right now. Because, for as much crap as we talked about the defense, and I guess they traded for Melvin Ingram, but like the pieces really haven't changed, and we've seen a significantly better product.
So I think OBJ is closer to being prime OBJ than like Josh Gordon is to being prime Josh Gordon. And I think a lot of the reason why it didn't work out in Cleveland was because OBJ was constantly in and out of the lineup with injury. So they never really got that chance to build a relationship. Baker was used to, not playing with him. And also Dan Harms on RGR Football mentioned it tonight that he heard that Odell was maybe freelancing a little bit instead of running his route that was drawn up for him, which threw Baker off, because when he went to look for Odell Beckham, he was nowhere where he was supposed to be. And all these plays where he was supposedly open, well, it was because he was doing the wrong thing. Now, I mean, I will say that actually, if that's something that Odell does, that actually fits the Chiefs offense a little bit, because that's where Patrick Mahomes loves to do, running out of the pocket, the play breaks down and guys aren't quitting. Mecole Hardman is someone that quits on his routes. I would much rather see OBJ in there than Mecole Hardman. But then there's the aspect with OBJ where, he's kind of a me first guy and not a team first guy. And I'm not sure how well that would mesh here. He would have to sign here under the notion, look, you're Travis Kelce and Tyreek Hill are still the 2 top dogs. But, if I was OBJ, I would have been watching that Chiefs game yesterday and thinking about how much I could help this team, because he's someone who can get separation and he's another threat. You wouldn't be able to bracket Kelce and Hill as easily. Like, look, I'll be interested. If they do it, I'm not going to complain. But I did see on Twitter that I guess the Seahawks are the favorite. So it doesn't look likely that he comes to Kansas City anyway. But, I'm not going to be upset if they kick the tires on that.
I just think that, like, if you went to Odell, I feel like that's just kind of showing that you're completely, first of all, giving up on Josh Gordon, but you're also kind of, well, they should give up on Mecole, but like they haven't refused to put Josh Gordon over Mecole yet. So it's just like,
that's another thing. That's another thing that has kind of like thrown me off a little bit. Like, Josh Gordon, you brought him in and you can't even get him targets. So why would you add then another receiver that has to come in here and supposedly learn the offense and all this stuff, only for him to probably not get targets? I bet you they bring in OBJ in here and Demarcus Robinson is going to still be out snapping him. That's just kind of way this team operates. And, you don't want this black hole in your wide receiver room of Josh Gordon and OBJ, and they aren't even getting the ball, and they can't seem to get any targets. And I could see that turning into a mess very quickly. But
Yeah.
yeah.
And I can see Josh Gordon being more of a team player. Like, all right, like I messed up in my past. Like, I understand that I'm not going to get targets right away because I'm unproven. Odell is going to let you know that he needs target. You know what I mean? Like, I think Josh Gordon's more of a team guy, and Odell is just it's me. Like, give me the ball.
Well, Josh Gordon has to be a team guy because after
Yeah.
everything he's been through in his career, you can't be coming in and asking for
Exactly.
stuff.
Exactly, because he wouldn't be on the team. But I honestly, and we talk so much Josh Gordon, he's on a 1-year deal right now. And from everything that we know, he looks like he's been staying out of trouble, and he actually looks like he's like putting in a lot of work. I wouldn't be against like actually signing him maybe to a 2-year deal this offseason and at least giving him another shot because I think that, maybe his bad pass is behind him.
Yeah, and you like to see that, all football aside, that he's turning his life around. And he said that he wants to make Kansas City a long-term home. And for that reason, I want so badly for this to work out for him. But it's not going to work out if you don't freaking target him. So
got to force feed him. Just at what point is Andy Reid going to kind of put bias aside, so to speak, and just give the best guys a chance to be in a position to succeed? Like, I think that they've obviously seen what Josh Gordon can do in practice, and I think that they're kind of hesitant to put him over Mecole Hardman because I think that Mecole Hardman is the kind of guy that once you kind of bury him on the depth chart, I don't think he comes back. Like, I don't think he makes any impact. Like, and I agree with that, but I think that Andy doesn't want to do that to him. You know what I mean?
No, he won't. I mean, because if they were that type of team, they would have done that with a guy like Sorensen, and they're still always going to play Sorensen because that's just how they are.
And I think that you can play Sorensen barring in coverage. Like, I think you can play Sorensen in the box as a linebacker or as a blitzer. Like, it's just putting Sorensen in a position where he's not having to drop back into coverage and use something that he doesn't have anymore. He doesn't have the speed that he used to. He doesn't have the coverage ability that he used to. I mean, heck, we were talking about his inability to cover guys like 2 years ago. And now it's just, he's completely unplayable, at least in
he's
coverage.
fallen off a cliff.
Yeah.
Completely.
Yeah. I think
even last year, last year he would still blow a lot of assignments and stuff, but he wasn't getting,
it wasn't obvious. You know what I mean?
I mean, he's just completely fallen off a cliff.
Yeah. And I mean, the NFL will do that to someone. It's just, you think by now Spags is like, oh yeah, we gotta switch something up. It's not that hard to understand. And like, we've been talking about this for such a long time. I feel like I'm repeating most of my thoughts, but like, what is wrong with Dorian O'Daniel? Is he just so incapable of playing the game of football that like he's not worth it? Because like, if I'm Brett Veach, I'm like, dude, I gave you Armani Watts, yet you're playing Dan Sorensen. I gave you Dorian O'Daniel, and you're playing Ben Niemann. What more do you want me to do? Like,
yeah. At least you live and die with your best athletes on the field. It was the last straw for me when Ben Niemann got beaten man coverage by Kyle Rudolph against the Giants. Why is Ben Niemann in man coverage on a tight end? At least Dorian O'Daniel has the athleticism to run with a guy like Kyle Rudolph. And we're talking about a Kyle Rudolph who's not in his prime anymore. This is not Vikings Kyle Rudolph. This is Giants washed Kyle Rudolph, and Ben Niemann can't even cover him. I mean, I know, man. I wrote an article on it. I want the media to relentlessly question Steve Spagnuolo until we see some O'Daniel, until Sorensen's snap count goes to 0, because it's just inexcusable to continue to trot those guys out, especially on third down too. They're taking Willie Gay and Nick Bolton out of the game on third down a lot.
That's why that Ben Niemann was even worse. That's why that Ben Niemann thing was even worse, because you took Willie Gay out of the game. And Willie Gay, I swear, on one leg is better than Ben Niemann. Like, there is no excuse for taking him out. And like, I made this, I guess, kind of a joke, but like being serious, like, I think Omari Cobb offers more in terms of athleticism than Ben Niemann. I think that he's a better option because like Ben Niemann might know where to be, but he doesn't have the ability to get there. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And see, that's so stupid. And that's why I feel like That's why I'm really pissed that Dorian O'Daniel doesn't get a shot, because it's this whole explanation. The easy explanation always was they know where to be, they know the defense. Do they though? It doesn't look like they do. Dan Sorensen can't even get a line. And I see this comment from Doug NKS. He says, "How come they bench Hughes and not Dirty Dan? What the hell?" Yeah, I mean, Dan Sorensen has been far worse at his position than Mike Hughes has been at his, and that's saying something. And Hughes gets benched and Sorensen still gets to play. Yeah, I can't make it make sense, man. I don't know. I don't know.
And like, I think even though Spags has done a very good job over the past 2 weeks, like, we still got to question his job at the end of the year. It's going to depend how this defense, because like, let's be honest, if this defense magically turns into a top 15 unit by the end of the year, at that point, it's like, all right, well, maybe he's not the problem, and it's just Dan Sorensen and those other guys. And if they keep performing the way that they do, I'm not in the mindset of we need to rehaul everybody. Like, you know what I mean? Like, a couple weeks ago, I was like, all right, Ben Neiman. No. Nick Bolton, Willie Gay, L'Jarius Sneed, and Rashad Fenton. Those guys stay. Everyone else can go. Like, that was the mindset that I had a couple weeks ago. But if they do continue to perform and get better, like, it's not worth it to rehaul or overhaul everybody.
Yeah, I mean, because a couple weeks ago we were saying that, and I still think that should be the mindset heading into the offseason, because even though they played good these last couple games, I mean, their sample size of being bad is still larger than their sample size of being good. You don't want to get sucked into a couple good games. And that's what I was saying about Frank Clark. And I have an article coming out tomorrow about this on Arrowhead Addict. That's why I want to be careful with this Frank Clark thing, because you can't, a lot of people are going, oh, well, Frank Clark keeps playing like this, maybe they keep him. No, you can't make the same mistake twice, because they traded for him because of a couple good seasons in Seattle. And then look what happened. And let's not forget, this is basically a contract year for Clark. So of course he's going to try to go out there and perform his best. How do we know that they don't maybe extend Clark after this year and then he just goes right back to being a pumpkin? So you don't want to make that same mistake twice. And like Frank Clark, his highest graded game ever with the Chiefs was against the Giants, but the Giants offensive line is really bad. So these are all things you got to consider. You don't want to be too reactionary.
Yeah. And I think that you can say Frank Clark has had a really good past 3 games and not want to bring him back next year. I think that's kind of where I'm at. Like, I think he's been very good, but I also don't think that he's worth the cap hit that's going to happen next year. Like, you gain much more by letting him walk.
Yeah. And here's the thing too. You can still bring him back, but at a much cheaper deal. Kind of like what the Seahawks did this past offseason with Carlos Dunlap. I think he still had a bunch of money due. They released him and then they brought him back at a 3-year deal that was much more team friendly. They could still do that with Clark, because I think Clark likes being in Kansas City. I don't think he really sees himself anywhere else. And even though he's screwed up a lot and his play has been really bad, I think the Chiefs coaches like him. I think the organization likes him. So maybe they cut Clark and they bring him back at a much lesser number.
It better be a league minimum contract. Like, he's not worth anything more than that. Cause like there's the chance that he literally is a liability. Like, up until the last couple of weeks, he was a liability on the football field.
Yeah.
So
yeah, definitely.
I mean, that's all stuff that we're going to have to see about later on.
Now, I did want to bring up one person that I talked about last night, because Frank Clark is kind of my guy that I bagged on, and I'm having to admit, hey, he played really well. Orlando Brown maybe had his best game as a Chief yesterday too.
I will give him credit. I was one of those guys that wanted him gone. I think we're going to extend, like, I have always thought we're going to give him money, but like, I think it's going to be 14, 15 and not 25. And I think that's something that I guess is working in the Chiefs' advantage. But I also think that, he's still getting more comfortable in this system. And I think that, it's really easy to judge Orlando Brown Jr. for not being as good as we would have expected, because you're seeing guys on the same offensive line. Creed Humphrey, I could make the case he is the best center in the game of football. Right tackle. Well, I guess not right tackle. Right guard. Trey Smith's been phenomenal. Like, you've had parts of your line really excel that shouldn't really be having the amount of success that they are. And when you bring in and you trade for a proven commodity in Orlando Brown Jr. and he hasn't lived up to that, it leaves room for concern. And I still think that he's going to have to work on his pass blocking. But he's excelled in the running game. Like, that's just what he has done. That's what he's good at. Like, that's why he fit Baltimore so well. So, I will eat crow. I think that, he has been good, but I also think that we need to look at this just kind of like the Frank Clark thing. Like, all right, he's performing better, but like, there's still a very good chance that he's not worth bringing back. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I still think no matter what happens, if he plays, because we're about halfway through the season. If his second half of the season looks the exact same the first half went, I still think they keep him because I just don't think you have a ton of options, and you can't really afford to let him walk and then go spend another asset on left tackle. So that's why. And you mentioned he probably looks more like a $15-16 million per year player instead of a $25 million per year player. That would be awesome if they could get him at a number like that.
See, I'm just curious where all this money's going to come in. Like that's what I want to know. Like, releasing Clark, I guess, is some of it, but like
releasing Clark will save you about $15 million. If you wait till after June 1st, it's about $20 million. LDT's gone now. You'll probably save his money that'll roll over to next year. Hitchens is going to free up a lot of money. Hitchens is gone after this year for sure.
I thought his contract just ended after this year, though.
Either way, I forget. I would have to look exactly.
I wonder if he signed a 4-year deal instead of a 3-year deal. Maybe that's what
it was. It was 4. It was 4.
Yeah.
And then I'm trying to think of who else. I mean, look, there's still a possibility they don't re-sign Tyrann Mathieu and he's gone. I don't necessarily want that to happen, but they could still save money by letting him go.
Yeah, like I think maybe even like you can not upgrade over Tyrann Mathieu because he's obviously a very good safety, but like something about just his aura over the past couple weeks has not really been something that you look for in a guy that you want to give a bunch of money. Like I don't look at Tyrann Mathieu and say like, let's sign him again. Like I used to be like, extend Tyrann Mathieu. It's not even a question, but like from what he said on social media, like, I don't know if like we need him back. Like, I think I'll always have love for Tyrann Mathieu for what he did in 2019 and 2020. Like, he is a big reason you got to where you are. But at the same time, is it hindering the franchise by giving a 30-something-year-old a ton of money coming off of, I mean, he's got 2 knee surgeries. Like, is it worth it at that point? Like, you can, and I don't know if I should even be talking about this because he's probably going to block me. But I think that, is it worth giving Tyrann an extension when I think that you should allocate more funds to the defense, but you could get significantly cheaper options that could probably get the job done just as well?
Yeah, I mean, look, you're willing to put up with his Twitter antics when they're winning, but when they were losing, it was only amplified. And he said some really stupid stuff. And the annoying thing is, too, he apologized through the media for saying what he did. And then, like, literally a couple of days later, he was back on Twitter chirping again. So it's maddening. I'm willing to put up with it if he's playing well, but when he's not, it makes him look really bad. Like I said a few weeks ago when we talked about it, I could be swayed either way when it comes to extending.
Exactly. Yeah, me too. And I want to address this comment really quickly because it says you're in your feelings as a fan and you wouldn't re-sign a player. It's not because of the social media entirely, but when you're saying dumb things that make you sound like you don't want to be here, I don't want you. You know what I mean? Like, why would I give a ton of money to somebody that doesn't really sound like he wants to be here?
Yeah.
That's financially irresponsible.
Yeah, no, I agree. And look, the next defensive back class is going to be loaded. You could always sign a replacement level free agent too. Like, for example, Marcus May, he was on the tag. He's going to be a free agent this offseason. Yeah, he just tore his Achilles, but you could get him for super cheap because of that. Potentially, Marcus May is a pretty damn good safety. So look, there's going to be options. I'm not saying they should let Mathieu walk, but there is going to be a rationale behind it if they do.
Yeah, and there could be a reason why Tyrann Mathieu has not been signed up until this point.
Yeah, sure. I'm sure there's a bunch of inside stuff that the Chiefs have talked about regarding it that we don't even know.
And I'm sure it's going to come down to, like, do you want to stay here? Like, because if Tyrann Mathieu really wants to stay here, we can make it happen. But, like, he's going to want that last contract because this is his last contract. That before, like,
his last big contract.
Yeah. I'm sure that he could probably sign a 1 or 2 year somewhere else. But, like, this is where he's going to probably make the money that is going to secure everything for his family's future. And I get that. And if you need to go somewhere else to make the most money, like, I don't blame you. That's just the business. But it's like, okay, I wouldn't go that far, Marlon. That's a little extreme.
I was laughing at Eric's comment saying Damon Arnett and Jermaine Whitehead are Chiefs. They fight they fight with the fans. I think that's what he was trying to say.
Really
And they're
quickly,
crybabies, so they fit with our defense.
you don't actually, no one really knows this. I know the dude that took down Damon Arnett. He
Really?
DM'd it. Yeah, he DM'd him and said he was trash. And he's just showing me all these like I have his address because he sent it. Like it was wild what happened with Damon Arnett. Like
that. Why would he do that? Especially on his actual account too. That like,
yeah.
I don't know, man. That's just
And
stupid.
honestly, I don't know if
Raiders are a mess. This is why pre-draft interviews are important.
Yeah. I mean, it's not even a surprise that John Gruden like was the head coach and he got drafted. Like that dude just seems like he would fit in a John Gruden thing. Like John Gruden's just like, we like his attitude, but I don't know. And I think that he probably would have still been on the team, but I heard he crashed like 4 rental cars in the past year.
Yeah, and if you listen to the audio that came out in the Instagram DMs or whatever, I mean, no, people aren't going to talk about it because what everyone's focusing on is the threats and the waving of guns and stuff. He had like 4 or 5 homophobic slurs, and he's teammates with Carl Nassib.
Yeah. I kind of forgot about that.
Yeah, it gets lost in everything. But
it gets lost in the I'm going to kill you, but
yeah, the Raiders organization is a complete mess.
Yeah, I completely forgot about that. Like that's a really good point. Like that dude said a lot of stuff like that you can't do, and
yeah,
makes you happy that you're not the Raiders. But you know that's our next challenge. And honestly, is it at home or in Vegas?
This first one I think is in Vegas. I could be wrong on that though. Because doesn't it flip flop every year? Where the home game comes first and the road game comes first. I forget. I'm sure someone in the comments knows if the next game is at Allegiant Stadium or if it's at Arrowhead. I guess you're looking it up.
It's in Vegas. So
okay, yeah.
I think it's actually it's on Sunday Night Football too. So we're gonna see a game, but the question's gonna be like, which Chiefs do we get? And I guess that's something that we'll probably preview on Thursday or Friday. But like I think that this team is in a golden opportunity to turn their season around. And the question is going to be, can they? Like, you got a Packers team without Aaron Rodgers. You were able to beat them in a game in which your defense looked much better. There is no, like, you need to turn your season around at this point.
Yeah. And the Raiders are the perfect opponent to do it this next game. It's a divisional rival. The Raiders are down. They just lost to the Giants, and they have all this drama that we just went over. Like that's another game. Like you got to win. It's a must-win game, and then you can be 6-4 heading into the bye week, which is the exact same record they had at that point in the season when they won the Super Bowl in 2019. So, and then the Cowboys look beatable right now too. I think you got to go 2-0 in these next couple games.
You could for sure beat the Cowboys. Like I think that, you know, the Broncos did it. The Broncos killed the Cowboys, but like you can go on a run here. And like the Chargers don't look any good either. They barely beat the Eagles. Like you can go on a stretch here. It's just, can your offense improve? Like if the offense can get to the point where they're dropping 25 to 27 a game, you will probably win a lot of these games.
Yeah.
I
agree.
13 to 16 points is not going to win you anything. And luckily it has, but it's not good enough.
Yeah, I completely agree. I did we get everything?
I was going to say, I don't really know what else I have. I guess I'll look at my notes really quickly. Cause like we talked about how good the defense was. Special teams with Tommy Townsend was good. Mecole needs to be benched. Unplayable is in all caps in my notes.
Yeah.
I guess another positive on the offense is the no turnovers thing. And like, I think that's kind of why I'm holding out hope for the offense, is because like I have more reason to have trust in the offense with Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid than I do in the defense. But the defense is starting to play. And if the offense can match that, we're going to have a chance.
Yeah, and I saw some people point out that, you know, they could have had another interception yesterday because of Kevin King. He dropped what should have been an easy pick. But that's the thing, is some of these bounces go your way and some of them don't, because a lot of these Chiefs turnovers, a lot of them were just bouncing off receivers' hands and they were unlucky and things of that nature. So finally the Chiefs get a ball that bounces their way. That's completely fine.
That's how football works. Like sometimes it goes your way, sometimes it doesn't. But it's just going to be a matter of like seeing how they adjust. Cause like, I honestly don't know what the game plan is going to be against the Raiders, because like, I don't know what the Raiders are at this point. You know what I mean?
Oh, sorry.
No, you're good. You
Eric's
sound like
comment
a
just
heart
reminded me.
attack.
He said, "Yeah, no, sorry." He said Kevin King is an absolute scrub. Now, I don't have anything to add to that, but I totally forgot mentioning Mecole Hardman. That play where he got up and he shoved Kevin King, and Andy Reid was screaming at him, and rightfully so. But after that moment, he should have been benched. Never again touch the field. First of all, Mecole, you are not good enough to be shoving players after a play. Secondly, we still could have easily lost that game. If the refs see that and they throw a flag, 15-yard penalty, the Chiefs probably end up punting the ball back. And who knows, the Packers could have driven down the field and scored because the defense was gassed. And we're talking about a 14-13 Chiefs loss. Mecole Hardman was a complete idiot for that.
Or if Crosby makes those field goals, it's a tie
Yeah.
game. Like, you don't know what happens at that point. So, like, Chiefs got a little bit lucky, but at this point, like, I think that my expectations have gone from like we need to see what's the word? We need to see a win that looks what's the word? I don't
A
know. We need to
convincing
see
win.
convincing win. I was going to say professional win, but like we needed to see a convincing win. And they didn't really do that yesterday, but at the same time, like, you just need wins at this point. Like, you're above 500 for the first time since week 1. Like, you needed this desperately. Let's see. I do want to get to some comments because we've kind of been avoiding
Yeah, I
most
want to
of it.
answer Lego Ego's one right here. You said, why weren't we rewarded with a TD after it touched the foot of the Packers player? That's because the rule on punts is that if it touches or grazes a player and they don't get the ball, like if they touch the ball and it's still rolling, you can't advance it. You can only recover it. Now, however, if they pick up the ball and they're running with it, like they have possession and then they fumble it, then you can return it for a touchdown. But if it only touches them, you can't advance it.
I think that's a stupid rule, personally.
Yeah, I do too.
Does Pat have nerve pain from the turf toe surgery causing the passing to worsen on his planting foot? I don't think so.
I don't think so either. I think it's so easy for people to like bring up a phantom injury. I see Chiefs fans do this a lot with players, like when they're not playing well. Oh, well, maybe it's an injury. No, I just think he's just whatever. Patrick's mentals have just been shot lately, and he has the yips, I think is what it is. I mean, look, he had surgery, 6 months ago?
It was a long time ago.
Yeah, I don't think that's an issue. He would be hobbling, I think, if that was the case. And
yeah,
I don't think you see him physically ailing out there. He's just missing throws that he typically makes, and his mind's just not totally in it right now. But he'll get there.
I think confidence is his biggest problem, not an injury.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
but his confidence can come back. Do you gentlemen think that when Patrick Mahomes threw that first down at the end of Hill that he looked pumped?
Yeah, you were just talking about that.
Yeah, I love that. Like that looked like Patrick Mahomes, and it looked because like Tyreek Hill was not open. He had to make himself open. Like, we need to see that because like Tyreek Hill is getting covered very well downfield. It's the second and third move to get away and just like the improvisation that we've missed recently. And I think that's kind of how you get back on track.
KC Jam Dab said it's his wife and brother. That's the problem.
No, it's probably his kid, if anything. Like being
maybe his kid is crying at 3 a.m. every night before game day, and he has to wake up and take care of him.
Yeah,
or her,
so
I should say.
That could be something. We talked about this a little bit off stream. Like, what do you do with your brother at this point? Like,
that's embarrassing. He's got to pull him to the side, and this goes beyond just his brother. I said recently that I want to see Patrick Mahomes get a little more mean when Mecole does that. Patrick is a guy that usually uplifts players, and he'll just say, "Hey, stay the course, like keep going, do your thing." No, get in Mecole's face and say,
chew him out.
Get your head out of your ass and start playing better. We expect better of you. And like if Andy Reid calls a second and long run, you'll never see Mahomes go against what Reid says, but I really wish he would audible out of that and instead throw a slant to Travis Kelce on second and long. It's stuff like that. I wish Mahomes would show his teeth a little bit. But when it comes to his brother, you just got to pull your brother to the side and be like, look, you're an embarrassment to our family. Just please stop.
Because like the thing is like Mahomes has got the city on his back and his family. Like, your brother should not be living like that. Is just a weird family dynamic, and it's kind of always been like that. And like I think it was very easy to like excuse it when the Chiefs are winning, and he wasn't really like this until recently. Like, he was kind of cringy, but like now he's becoming like an actual problem.
Yeah, like with the pouring the water bottle on the fan. And
Yeah.
there was some story where against Washington, he was dancing on Sean Taylor's memorial or something. And I heard different things that was roped off and that's where they told him to be. I don't know, whatever.
Yeah.
Point is, though, why make a TikTok there on the
Yeah.
field? I don't know. Just stop.
It's just, it's not something a 24-year-old man should do.
Yeah.
like there should be an age in which it's like if this was Mahomes' 4-year-old daughter, okay, you know, like she's 4 years old. This is 24 years old. He's older than both you and I, and he's
Yeah.
not, and he's not using proper judge. Like at the end of the day, like you being at the stadium, you are representing the Mahomes family, and
Yeah.
he's done and him and Brittany have done a strange job with that. And I think that's because like they're both really, really young. Like Patrick's 26 years old. I'm sure
Yeah.
Brittany is 25, 26 as well. Like
Around the
they're
same.
they're still pretty young, but like we got to see a little bit more maturity.
If Patrick can keep himself in check, even given the fact he's the star quarterback with all this attention and stuff, then you should be able to do it too.
Yeah. Like you should not care if a fan or says something to you or something like pouring water. Like that's just immature. Like, dude, just walk away. You're in a suite, close the door and go inside. You know what I mean? Like it doesn't make sense at all.
Yeah. Is that all we got? We're talking about Mahomes' family.
Yeah,
I feel like that tells you it's over.
Yeah. Before I start doing TikTok dances in the background, I think we're probably going to end the stream. Josh, where can the people find you?
You can find me on Twitter, either at ShowMeFB or my personal at JoshFan43. Then you can also find me here on YouTube, Josh Fan. That's all it is, just my name. Got more content coming this week.
Okay, really quickly, Noah Gray is not getting more snaps because they don't trust him because he's a rookie, and I think he should be getting more snaps over what's his name, tight end 2, Blake Bell, but he's just not. So, with that being said, you can find me on Twitter. That's at KC Sports Report. The new website, kcsportsreport.com. Go check that out. I haven't really put a lot of work into it, but we're starting to get the ground running on that. But subscribe to the YouTube channel if you haven't already, and go check out Josh's work on Arrowhead Addict. And Lucas isn't here, but Lucas just became the site manager over at KC Kingdom. So congrats to that. I do some work on KC Kingdom, but I need to get back on that. But go check out our work there, and we'll see you guys next time.
See ya.